where does that leave you if you don't see a sign and you drive into the new ULEZ zone, which, as you know, went live at midnight? Let's speak to Nick Freeman, a motoring lawyer nicknamed Mr. Loophole. Thank you for joining us on the Wake Up Call this morning. It feels like new territory for us here in Kent. So where do you stand then if you get a fine because you cross into a ULEZ boundary, but there aren't any warning signs for you?
Good morning, Anna.
Morning.
Yes, there's obviously there's the moral argument and then there's the legal argument.
Yeah.
And legally, there must be appropriate signage. There must be warning signs, and then there must be signs indicating you are now in a ULEZ zone. And there must also be, in my opinion, not only just a sign telling you you're here, but what are the consequences of being here? In other words, the signage that exists in central London, in my view, is inadequate. £320 million have actually been obtained during the last 2 years. And in my view, this signage in central London is not fit for purpose. There was a case in October 2021, where an adjudicator agreed, first of all, that the signs in central London were not authorised and they didn't provide adequate warning. So I don't know whether your area has signs or not. To comply with the law, there must be warning signs that are authorised, and they must not only be authorised, but they must tell you you will be entering a charging zone. And then the signs in the area must also be authorised, and they again must have that C, which tells you that you're going to be charged for being in that area. And if you're not in that area, you will certainly be fined, but it's then a question of whether or not those fines are legitimately legally imposed, a question of enforceability. And there's no doubt that TfL will say, yes, they're perfectly proper. They dealt with this case in that way. What happened in this case, just very briefly, is the adjudicator said, I'm going to now adjourn the case for 3 weeks for you to show to me that the signage is authorised and that it's compliant. And they just didn't respond. So he concluded, I'm not satisfied that the signs are authorised, and I'm not satisfied they're compliant. And we're talking about a gentleman named Mr. Wilcox, £11,500 at stake, plus £4,000 costs. And notwithstanding the fact that they lost that case, TfL lost that case, they sent the bailiffs in. They told us that actually they'd won the case, which was untrue. And when they were asked for further comments and to send the judgment, they've asked to have until lunchtime today to do that. So as I heard before I came on the air, there were lots of people not prepared to come on the show and answer questions, but lots of people just giving set statements, which isn't really that helpful because they can't be asked questions about things that might be slightly uncomfortable.
Pushed on it, yeah.
So my view legally is if there's no signs, that basically there are no legal fines. And I'm not telling your motorist, the people in your area, that not to pay, but I am telling you that if you do get fined, to challenge it, and you challenge it first of all to TfL, that will be rejected, and then you take the case to the adjudicator. And what's interesting about the case in 2021 was that TfL decided not to appeal it.
That's
because
interesting.
And the reason they did that, in my opinion, is because they didn't want a binding decision. If it goes to a traffic commissioner, it's then a binding authority, which they clearly don't want. So, I would be advising TfL today to say we're going to halt this exercise. I think the exercise is harebrained in the first place, but that's not why you've got me here to talk. And what they should do is put the right signs in place with the right warning signs, with that C there, and then there will be no problem. Otherwise, you're going to be costing taxpayers, well, basically millions and millions of pounds, which is going to be wasted. This is going to be huge aggravation for TfL, huge aggravation for the motorist. And people need to do their jobs properly. And TfL have buried their head in the sand, and they're not addressing the issues that have already been drawn to them.
Now, what though, if there are signs in London, which there are, but not in Kent? So we've kind of got this hybrid situation where Kent County Council say, look, no, and then you drive over the border and you do see them there.
Well, it's a good question. My view is, if you're driving in an area where there are no signs, there's no enforceability. Okay. And this case suggests that if you actually drive in London, there's no enforceability there either, because the signs have not been proven to be authorised, and they have not said what the consequence is. The whole purpose of signs, Anna, it's not just fun. It's to actually say, it's to be fair to the motorist. You're entering a zone, and do you get a picnic camper? No, you get a charge. And that's why that C's there. So the motorist can make an informed decision with the advanced signs. No, I don't want to go into that area because it's going to cost me. At the moment, all the motorist knows, well, in your area, I don't think the motorist does knows, but let's assume they go into London. They've got a sign there. They might know anecdotally what they mean because there's been a lot of publicity, but there has to be legal compliance. There has to be legal authorization and legal compliance. And this case suggests that neither exists. And TfL were given 3 weeks to produce that. And that just simply didn't happen.
That's very interesting stuff. Listen, thank you so much for your time and your expertise this morning. Nick Freeman then, a motoring lawyer, nicknamed Mr. Loophole, as you know. I wonder what you make of all of that. And it will be, of course,